Hello everyone, it's me, Walter the Germany Ball. I'm back with Hayden, who's making a return. Since the second episode of this series, this podcast, we're making called Console Conversations. Now, this will be a relatively more short episode, but I hope you still enjoy it anyway. So, we'll be talking today about a theory in gaming that was very popular around the time of the PS3 for pretty obvious reasons once we explain it, but now has faded into obscurity. And that is, of course, the theory of the third console curse. It's pretty self-explanatory based on the title itself. It's when a company publishes a third console, it's bound to not be as successful as other consoles and not do very well. And so we will be talking about the evidence for this and then be deciding, is it really true or not at the end, and see if we agree or if we don't. So the first piece of evidence I have is the N64, which is Nintendo's third console, and it was the first console war they lost. They had won the NES console war and the SNES console war, but they just flopped in the third one, which was the N64. Anything to add?
No, but I can see, the controller wasn't very good. The controls for most of the game were kind of, they were mostly, kind of clunky and unresponsive most of the time. Not one of Nintendo, it's not a very good console itself, even the previous consoles were more responsive.
Yeah, and that's because, I think it's because around the third console is when developers really get into the market and they're like, okay, now we know what we're doing, but they often get really, really confident, way too confident most of the time, and then they release something like the N64, and they were like, oh, we can release something with cartridges, and that can barely fit anything, and that is underpowered and has a terrible controller, like you said, and the people will eat it up. And with our second piece of evidence is the PS3, and it's the same thing. PlayStation got cocky because the PS1 was a huge success, and the PS2 was even bigger, being the best-selling video game console of all time, I believe, or the Wii.
Of all time.
I'm pretty sure it
is
Yeah.
PlayStation 2.
So then they were like, well, we can release a $600 foreign architecture, hard to develop for terrible console that had barely any exclusives, and people would love us for it. And they didn't. And then they released the PS4 to make up for it, which was a good step. Also, if you think about Nintendo, their third console, the sixth console, was the Wii U. And it's one of their worst consoles. Terrible decision. But just like they did with the GameCube after the N64, the Switch is trying to make up for what it did.
So you're saying that the ninth console that Nintendo makes will be really bad too?
Who knows? I don't know. Our next piece of evidence is the Sega Saturn. What? No one knows what that is? Okay, fair enough. But the Sega Saturn is not even real. It was trying to compete against Sony after Sega was like, okay, fine, we'll stop trying to attach disgusting looking things to the Genesis to keep it on life support because it's our only successful console. We'll finally release a new console. But the thing was, it was half as powerful as the N64, which is very underpowered even for the time. It has barely any exclusives. It didn't even have a good Sonic game. It had Sonic R. And well, it's Sonic R. So,
Sonic R.
Yeah. The only good games on it were Clockwork Knight, I think Nights into Dreams, I don't know, I haven't been much acquainted with it, and Panzer Dragoon. But really, 3 games? Well, 4 if you count the second Panzer Dragoon. But that was it, and that's kind of disappointing. Also, it was $400. So yeah. And they released it as soon as they announced it, so no one would carry the console or the games. And that's why it flopped, was because they got cocky with the Genesis, and then they were like, well, we can just do whatever we want. And now we go to our second to last piece of evidence, the Xbox One. Now, I'm not saying that if you like the Xbox One, you're wrong. I'm just saying that they made a lot of bad business decisions with the original. The Xbox One S and X, which sound very similar.
They're basically the same console, but one's
Yeah,
more powerful and
but
one's smaller.
But they're better, and that's basically their version of the Switch or the PS4, making up for something bad. But it's really not enough. And they don't have that many good exclusives. Sure, you have Cuphead, but as of right now, it's on the Nintendo Switch.
Cuphead's on every console.
No,
Yeah,
on the PS4.
Yeah, it is.
It's on the Switch and the PC originally. Also, they have
It's on the PS4.
Halo and Gears. Those are like pretty much their only real exclusives. Pretty much everything else is on PC.
At least they're making a new console.
Yeah, and that's good. It does seem pretty impressive and powerful.
The controller seems pretty impressive too.
Yes, I don't think we've seen it.
Well, I mean,
Oh,
it's like
but the Elite Xbox
Yeah.
controller is very impressive. But as I hinted at in my last video, it's $150, which is a little.
I mean, it's a customizable controller.
Yeah, but still, that's quite a bit for a controller. That's like half of what it costs to get an Xbox One in the first place. But whatever.
Well, I mean,
And our final piece of evidence, Atari. The Atari 2600 is a classic console that people know very well. The 5200, however, is known to be one of the biggest reasons for the video game crash of 1983 and is all around a bad piece of hardware with some major issues and very glitchy games like Pac-Man and the Mario Bros. On there.
Mario Bros. Were on Atari?
Don't even ask. It was bad. But yeah. And it was not a very good console. That was their second console. So that doesn't really prove it. But then, after that mess, just kind of like Sega with the Dreamcast. Oh, Sega was a lot more prominent, but still, they faded into obscurity more. The 7800 was their third console, and it did not do well. It was overall just kind of bad, and while it was pretty good, it was basically 8-bit, and it was running against the SNES and the Sega Genesis, and so no one really wanted it. So it didn't do well, and Atari was an obscure industry after Nintendo and Sega took the stage from them. And also, then they released the Jaguar, and well, it was the Atari Jaguar. So that third console was it was the meat of a sandwich of Atari's death. So there you go. Those are all of the pieces of evidence I could come up with for the third console curse. So, to make our final statement, both of us will tell you what we think. Is it true or is it not? I honestly have to say it's true, but what does Hayden decide?
Well, I think it's not really a curse. I think it's more like console creators getting too confident about their previous consoles and thinking that they can do whatever they want. But I don't really think it's a curse. I think it's more like bad business decisions.
I would have to agree. It's definitely the cause of bad business decisions, and I would only say the only reason people should call it a curse is because it's coincidentally happened to every major video game console manufacturer. It's basically just saying a coincidence. If people actually mean it's like a real curse, that's a little unrealistic. But yeah, I agree, it's bad business decisions. So that wraps everything up. Thank you guys for watching so much. We'll be releasing new videos soon, possibly even today. Thank you guys again for watching. Make sure to like, subscribe, share this video with someone you know, hit the notification bell, subscribe to Hayden's channel. Be safe, everyone. Leave a comment with any advice to make our videos better. And be safe, everyone. I don't know what he's doing. Bye!